Hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome to the channel. Now if you've watched my reviews before, you'll know that I really like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in my cars. And if you already have that and it's wired, I also like to upgrade that to wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And today we're reviewing the MINIX CA361 Plus. Now you might have seen MINIX on this channel before because they've sponsored a couple of other videos, and I've reviewed their wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay adapters and their wired CarPlay to HDMI adapter, which converts your CarPlay radio into a screen for an HDMI device like a laptop or a gaming console. Today we're checking out the CA361 Plus, which converts your wired CarPlay radio into a wireless Android Auto and wireless CarPlay radio, and adds an HDMI input. So let's take a look. So it comes packed in a nice little foam holder. We've got a nice braided USB cable, and a metal USB-A to USB-C adapter. So you can use this if your car has USB-C inputs or regular USB ports. Also comes with a user manual. Take a quick look. So you do have to keep in mind that this is designed to work with cars with wired CarPlay only, but adds wireless Android Auto. As you'll see, there's an HDMI input here and a USB port. Now they do say don't use this to power your HDMI device. It's more of a service port to update it, but we'll also see how to update this wirelessly with your phone. Now you'll see the cable has a fair amount of length, which is really convenient because once you plug it in, you can actually tuck it away somewhere else, or even run it into the back if whatever you're going to be plugging in is in the back of the car to your HDMI port, so it gives you some flexibility. So with that, let's go test it in a car and see how it works. Alright, so we're on my Mercedes S-Class that has an aftermarket radio with wired CarPlay. So I'm going to get my USB input for CarPlay. I'm going to plug in the MINIX, pop it in. See right here it connects via wired CarPlay, and we have our landing screen. So as you can see, you can choose to go to CarPlay and Android Auto or to HDMI, so there's two modes. And then we have a back button that brings us back to the main interface of the radio, and we have a settings button. So you can choose in the settings whether you want it to automatically start up into Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, or directly into HDMI, or neither, where you can choose. So we'll leave it at none for now. And we'll get started with CarPlay and Android Auto. So when we get into this mode, we can actually just back out to go to our selection screen, but it also tells us what we need to connect to. So Auto D428 is what we need to connect to with an iPhone. So right here, we see Auto D428. The number will be different on your unit. It's going to be unique to the dongle. And we're going to just hit connect here. We'll give you a pairing request. There we go, it's connecting. And we're in. So we've got, it's pretty responsive, looks good. Got our home page there. So let's see, probably go into music. Spotify is a good way to test. And the little delay you hear when we hit play and pause is a CarPlay thing, so there's nothing wrong with the dongle. That's just how it behaves with wireless CarPlay. All right, that's really cool. So no issues here. We can go into our settings. You know, it's the same type of things. You can use light mode, dark mode, and you can change your wallpaper. We'll just leave it what it is. And yeah, now I'm gonna disconnect that from my iPhone. It drops out of it, and we're gonna do the same thing with Android Auto. So same process, click here. Now here it shows what the last thing it connected to was. Now something to note with this is that whatever phone was last connected to the dongle is going to be the first one that it's going to try to connect to. So if you have two phones that have connected to it in the past and they're both in the car when it turns on, it'll try to connect to the most recently connected one. Now right here, go to Auto D428, pair, there we go. Now, and it even works with the play pause button that's built into my head unit. So that's good to know. So yeah, everything works. That's really good. And same thing, you know, all the apps you have on your phone that are compatible with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay will show up in the interface. So anything, you know, things like Messenger, weather apps, that kind of stuff. I'll actually show here if it's ready to connect. You'll have it in color. And if it's ready to go, you can just tap in and it'll load in. All right, so now I also have an HDMI device to test out. So I'm gonna plug it in here. There we go. We'll hit HDMI to get into it. It's a bit of a dark scene, but it is working. So as you can see, there's a very slight input delay, but it's pretty manageable for certain types of games. So you probably don't want to play something super fast-paced, but for something a little more story-driven, it's a really good option. So yeah, and you have the audio coming out through the speakers. So yeah, it's really neat. Now another good use case for an HDMI input like this is as a second screen for your laptop. Say you're on a lunch break or you're on a trip and you have to stop, pull out your laptop, do a little work, or just hang out. You know, you can output the audio into the car speakers, or you can just have it as a second screen playing a video or something like that, or even a second screen to monitor if you're editing something, for example. So you get a lot of options. And then when you're done, you can just unplug it and it returns to the main screen. So you're back right here. So when you're done, you just unplug it, switch back to CarPlay, get back on the road, and you're good to go. So one thing I want to point out is that when you're connected via HDMI, even though this is a touchscreen, it doesn't send a touch signal to whatever's connected. So it won't turn a second screen on a laptop into a touchscreen, so it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing you should know is that when you touch the screen, two shortcuts show up. One up here is for a screen setting, so it'll shift the output very slightly. I think it toggles between two different modes. In my case, it widens it just a slight bit. That's most likely for screens that are a different aspect ratio. You could stretch it to fill, but I'm just going to use it as it is because it works well. And the other is up in the top left, is a back button. So you could just hit back, switch back to CarPlay, do what you need to do, and pop back into HDMI. So yeah, very neat. Now there's another thing that we can do is check for updates on this. So what's really convenient is that MINIX has set this up so that you can connect to it with your phone and check the settings and run some updates. So let's do that. To connect for upgrades, you're going to connect to the Wi-Fi that's named Auto D428, which is the unit's name. And then the password is, by default, the number 8 times. So 88888888. Join. So we're connected. Then you can go to your favorite browser, type in 192.168.1.101. And then we can check the specs. So we have the build number, date of manufacture. So this one was made in October 2024. You can restore factory settings. We've got the late start, which can be useful for some cars. Some factory units require a little delay so that this doesn't boot up before the head unit's ready. So you could change that, just a couple modes. And you can actually submit any issues. So type what car you have, like brand, model, year, and then write a little description and submit it. So if you have any bugs that you encounter, you can report them. And then there's an update section. 2024-12-06, so from earlier this month. And one of the update notes for this is that they've dealt with some issues with Amazon TV sticks. So we'll hit update. Now it's blinking red and blue, and that means it's applying the update. Now, while this wraps up, I just want to point out that you can also do the update from an Android phone, but the process is a little bit different, and it's shown in the manual. So yeah, it's really nice that you have the options to do this. So that wraps up the demo. So overall, this is a really cool unit, especially if you only have wired CarPlay in your car and you have an Android phone. It upgrades it to wireless Android Auto. Or if you have an iPhone, it'll also convert it to wireless CarPlay. And then on top of that, adding the flexibility of having your car's radio display as a screen is really neat, like using it with your laptop, maybe a console if you're on a break, or a media player for your kids or passengers. I want to thank MINIX again for sending this to me to review, and if you want to get one for yourself, I'll leave links in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more content like this, or you want to watch me rebuild cheap European cars, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.